Welcome, Homunculus, to the second episode of What Makes You Click. Today we'll be joined by half the writing staff of Birdman, Alex and Nico.
This place is horrible. Smells like balls.
It does. It does indeed. It does. Alright, so I'm here with my guests, Alex Dinelaris and Nico Giacobone. I got it, Nico Giacobone. Alright, cool. So before I begin, I just really want to get into your background. So Alex, you said you were you worked in theater more before you get into actual screenplay writing. So how many years were you working in theater before you actually decided to shift towards film?
I studied theater and directing for the theater when I was in college. I started writing sometime around '99, I think. I did some plays and a few that were produced in New York, a few musicals that are being produced, and I fell into screenwriting after that.
Gotcha. So now, when you were producing theater, and producing theater, it must be still in itself difficult. You have to raise the funds, you have to get all the actors together. So, what was the difference between producing a theater, a Broadway show, or even an off-Broadway show, compared to this movie Birdman and the screenplay and getting all that stuff together?
Well, I think in the end, they're similar in that you raise money and you make a production. There are people running it. But I myself wasn't concerned with producing it. I'm just a writer, so I get to avoid all the fundraising and groundwork, but writing for them is similar in that you tell stories. It's just the way you tell them. Mm-hmm. In film, much more elliptical, and tend to rely on the images. In theater, it's straightforward, people in a room talking until the argument's over. So yeah.
And then Nico, you said you were into literature more before getting the screenplay. So how many books have you written before even just jumping into the screenplay, and how many years were you in that?
I mean, I studied literature, and I began writing. I mean, as usual, I spent years and years writing in a tiny room, not going anywhere. I published a book of stories 15 years ago or something. No, 12 years ago, I would say. I've written a couple of novels that I just burned. And at some point, I just realized that it was going to be difficult to live just with literature. So, and I always loved film, and I began sort of learning and collaborating with directors in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, where I was born. And I slowly got into it, and I saw an opportunity to develop, as a screenwriter.
Cool. All right, so I want to just jump into it for Birdman. Birdman was obviously a collaborative process. So how did you guys meet as a team? How did you know you wanted to work together as a team? Have you guys been working together before, and then on a project you're oh, I like the way you wrote, or did you just meet each other randomly and just got involved?
I think in this case the conduit was Alejandro Iñárritu, who I had years back. I had done some preliminary work with him on a film called Beautiful. Nico and Armando ended up coming on to write Beautiful, so he knew us in two separate worlds. When he got the idea for Birdman, he called us up separately and said, how would you like to get together and work on this script? And he introduced us, actually, and that's how I met Nico and we started working on Birdman. So this was our first collaboration together. But we both sort of got invited to the party by Alejandro.
Oh, very cool. And Birdman, so when you guys were playing the process of Birdman, I want to go through the writing process you guys had to go through to create this film. So did you guys whiteboard the scenes? Were the scenes did you guys all come up together with the scenes, or was there a story outline for you guys and you guys just had to jump in to write the script?
No, I would say that first it was the four of us meeting here and in Mexico and in LA, and just discussing about character and the idea. And Alejandro already came since day one with the idea of the one continuous shot, and that he wanted to do a comedy, and that was intriguing enough for us and confusing enough for us. So we spent hours and hours trying to figure it out, what was the story behind that. And then, I mean, the interesting thing is that we are four guys. There are two that are mainly directors, which are Armando and Alejandro, and two that are mainly writers, which is us. So then we will, once we have all these ideas and sort of a treatment with as much detail as possible, we will just go and write.
Yeah, so we have the ideas, and I think it suited very well. That this project specifically, that idea that you had two men who were very visual, in Alejandro and Armando, and two that were more script-minded like us, because the film being in one shot was always going to be part of the storytelling, and so they would be able to say quickly what narrative might be according to what the camera was going to do. And so we would share these ideas on Skype from 3 different locations, generally from New York, where I was, Los Angeles, where Alejandro was, and Buenos Aires, where they were. And we'd get on a Skype call and we'd talk about sort of general structure and scenes, and then Nico and I would take a crack at writing it into dialogue and into scenes. Then we would bring it back to Alejandro and Armando, all of us get on, look at what we'd done, talk about what was next, correct what we wanted to correct, and sort of went back and forth. With revisions and everything, yeah.
So,
exactly.
You guys obviously were 2 different locations writing this, or did you guys meet up a lot of the times to write this? Like, did you guys like go to each of those places and just like?
We generally wrote on Skype a bunch, and then we met for big sessions, for big drafts. How many times? 2 or 3?
2, I think. No, that we met. Yeah.
Where we just went away up to the cabin once.
One in the cabin, and then one before the shooting, I would say.
Yeah, and we would just go and tackle all the notes in the entire draft, and then bring it back. So we met for 2 big sessions, and then we did a lot of Skyping and a lot of 2 in the morning.
Gotcha.
It's weird. Like they ask us about how to write. No, how was the development of Birdman as a writing team, and it's very difficult to describe. I mean, it's not something that you can say, do it this way because we did it this way or whatever. You know, like it was sort of like learning how to do it month by month. It was sort of like an insane process that we never knew what was going to be the end of it, what was going to be the result. We had fun most of the time.
Most of the time.
We were very confused most of the time and scared most of the we have, I don't know, like Skypes at 3 a.m. Like Alex in Berlin, I was in Buenos Aires.
That's right.
He was trapped in a snowstorm, and I was in Buenos Aires at 4 a.m. drinking coffee, and we were just laughing. Laughing in our pajamas. Like, so it's not a very precise. It wasn't a very precise or organized, I would say, journey.
And it took a very long time.
Most times it's really never that organized as you want it to be. Even some of the stuff I do, it's just like it's chaotic sometimes, and you just have to deal and adapt to that. And I think the best time of writing is when it's chaotic, because the best things come out of that. So when writing for this film and everything, how long did it take, like from start to finish? Like when you guys wrote your first draft, your second draft, to actually the final version. Like what was it like the process, like the whole timeline?
I don't know. I mean,
2 years.
For Birdman, it was around 2 years.
Just under 2 years, maybe, from first concept to shooting draft.
Yeah.
And then you said I've actually read and you didn't say it, that you guys did a lot of revisions even on set. So when they were shooting it, like a lot of times, like some of the stuff the actors say or some of the stuff that happened, you guys like say, maybe we want to switch this up, and you guys wrote.
I'll tell you what, Nico can talk to that, but it actually wasn't a lot of revisions because we did a lot of revisions beforehand. I think when you're doing a film like this and you're doing it in incredibly long takes, that we knew that there would be no editing in the middle. So this was the challenge of this script, because we couldn't go back and cut down what we had done. We couldn't edit out later on. So we basically knew that everything that we put down on the page, 95% of it was going to end up on the screen once we had our shooting draft.
Gotcha.
On the set, we made adjustments, which you can talk to. How we adjusted on the set.
I agree, I think we had a pretty solid draft before rehearsals, and then Alejandro did these long rehearsals with camera on set with the actors and everything, and it was interesting to find out how the scenes worked regarding the camera. So we did some polish, like mostly understanding how the camera is going to move in the scene. But it wasn't a rewrite. It was more a polish, a last,
And then character chemistry in the movie. There's obviously you have Edward Norton's character, who was just like this brash guy who just pretty much did what he wanted, it seemed like. And he always brought the best out of people if you look at it, because when he really talked to a Michael Keaton character, he really spoke to him and he's just like, listen, you only have to impress one person and you have to give it your all kind of thing. And then him, Emma Stone character, they kind of got in love. And then Michael Keaton saw that, it kind of blew up. So chemistry between the characters, like how do you guys figure out who's gonna have what chemistry and like how everyone's gonna just gel together?
I think that without trying to sound too austere about it. I think that you draw behavior and you draw characters with action, and how they relate to one another becomes the written chemistry. And then once you have that, it's going to be about the cast and the actors that bring what they bring. And we, in that regard, we couldn't have done any better. Can you imagine? I mean, Ed Norton, Emma Stone, Naomi Watts, Zach Galifianakis, Michael Keaton, Andrea Riseborough, Amy Ryan. It was a dream. So I think all we can do is write the action of the character, write what they want, write the obstacles together, put them in a room, let them argue. Chemistry is going to be what's left over from what's written and from what the actors do, I think.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And then you guys set the place in New York. Is there obviously this theater? Like, why did you guys make this character just go into theater? Like, what was the purpose of him being a movie star and then trying to get into theater? Why didn't you just try to do another film and just set the thing in Hollywood? Was there a reason for that?
Maybe the answer is the Carver napkin, no? I mean, for him, it began in the theater. I mean, he realized that he was going to be an actor while doing theater.
In that way, he went back to his roots, sort of. But I think there's also two other factors that contribute. One, the idea of prestige. Theater is still a prestige place for the actor on the stage. It's very live and visceral, and has that element of prestige in it, so that counted. And then two, there's a practical reason where form follows function here, where we're drawing a film in one shot, which was what Alejandro's inspiration was, that the theater seemed like a very natural place to do it, because in the theater there are no edits, there are no cuts, and so this form that we were using fit perfectly into this idea of theater, because in a way this is like a 2-hour play on film, because there's no edits or reaction shots, or it's very fluid in that way. So I think there are a lot of reasons why the theater turned out to be the right choice for this.
Gotcha. I got a quick question. Is there ever going to be a real life like theater play on like the actual play that's supposed to be in the movie? Are you guys ever going to have that as an actual play?
I think there's a better shot that we'll actually make Birdman 4.
Yeah, Birdman 4,
we were thinking
that
we
get 2 and 3 coming out. Audition for the second one.
No, we mean like the one in the film. Like when they say you're going to do Birdman 4.
Gotcha,
like we've been joking around that we think we should just make Birdman 4. Like not the first 3. Just start with Birdman 4.
Very serious.
And make a real
superhero movie.
I'm down. And the superhero's clearly white, but could the villain be Indian?
We should switch that around just to blow the stereotypes. I think
you know what?
Birdman.
I'll be the superhero. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I'm devilishly good looking, I would say so myself, but that's pretty much what a superhero is. Just a good looking guy who gets powers.
Yeah, right. It saves people.
Yeah. All right, so I want to talk to you about just one more last thing, because obviously we know we're in a time crunch. The idea of the Birdman being like I don't know if I would say alter ego, but it's like the past now. He's not able to let go of the past. He's this Birdman, sold billions and billions of merchandise, and even just like made so much money off of it, and now he's trying to do theater, the main character. So what was the idea behind just having this lingering dark figure around him that's trying to like kind of in a way manipulate his thoughts and everything? So what was the purpose behind that, and how did you guys come up with that idea?
I think that first it was the need of that voice. Like we didn't know who the voice was at first. It was more like the need of this guy, like to sort of like give a voice to the ego in a way. It was a little bit, and then the Birdman idea came as a I would say a good characterization of that voice.
Yeah, because he does live in his own world. The main character, it seems like, where
completely, yeah. I mean,
because he's moving stuff with his mind. He's this guy who can fly, and he maybe took a taxi ride someplace. Like he's clearly in his own world. So.
Yeah, it's more pathetic than that. I mean, it's one of those guys, and we all, in a way, have a little bit of that. I mean, he missed most of his life just for being inside his head, no?
Right.
I would say that his delirious powers are just a reaction of extreme ego, but the most pathetic part is the other one, no? I mean...
Yeah, I think that whatever that character was going to be, because for a while it was Edwin Booth, the famous American actor, whatever that character was going to be was going to play on his sense of his own mediocrity. But in a way, everything's mediocre. In a way, we say that Birdman was mediocre. In a way, we say the stage play is mediocre. In a way, we say the critic is mediocre. In a way, we say that, each character in this, there's nobody that we let off the hook, including ourselves as writers, It was about that battle that we all have with mediocre. So this sort of iconic voice on his shoulder of, when he was great, and well, you were great, but you were doing this.
Over triumphing mediocre.
Right, but even the success was mediocre. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't art, it was just commerce, and his commerce success, because then you're missing the artistic part. Right. So it was about this incompletion. The voice was always going to be that nagging voice that says, if you're going to be mediocre, at least make $1 billion doing it. And that's sort of the constant battle, and that's Birdman was going to be that part of his ego.
That's awesome. All right, that's really, really cool. So what's next for you guys? Let's start with Alex first.
I think we're in it together. You're in our room right now. This is our writer's room for a television series called The 1%. It's the same exact crew as Birdman. It's Alejandro, Armando, myself, and Nico. It'll be it's a show for the Stars Network, a 1-hour drama, which stars on the wall there Hilary Swank, Ed Harris, and Ed Helms. And we're literally in our second week of the writer's room. We've trying to finish writing the first season, so we can start shooting in the summertime.
How many episodes for the first season are we looking forward to?
We think it'll be 10 right now.
10? Yeah. And this is going to be aired on what, Stars?
Stars.
Gotcha, awesome. Yeah. And any more room for writers, just like, person who's really good, who also could probably act in it.
Did you have a sample on you? Can we read
we'll
something?
Let you know.
Can we read something right now on camera of yours that we can?
You know what? I wish I really brought something. We can read my next thing. I'm actually writing this web series. It's called Real Men of South Brunswick. So the kind of idea became, what happened after me from college? I worked in New York, and now I quit. And so I'm like, what am I doing next? I moved back home with my mom. So I'm like, this would be a brilliant idea, just showing Indian people just graduating who really didn't amount to much after college, but who are super ambitious and want to do everything. And my character's trying to get to fame, and he's trying to do in the weirdest ways, YouTube, Vine, anything possible. And so he decides to create this documentary that he has a camera following him around. And our third episode is going to be called White Indians, which is about a guy who was born in America, a Jewish guy born in America but raised in India. And he comes back to America to be an agent. And he's more Indian than I could ever be. And it's going to be the battle between us.
I love that. I'm watching.
So it's going to be a third episode, and we're going to try to see how this works out.
I'm totally watching that. Is your family into film?
Oh, my mom is, and that's why she's one of the characters.
One of our friends, we were working on a project with the great Bowman Irani, who came to New York, and we were working on a really nice idea of his.
Yeah. But it's awesome. Last questions. What makes you guys click?
Us?
Yeah. Why do you guys do what you do? What inspires you guys?
Sir?
Watching Manu Ginobili play basketball.
It's always good. It's always good.
Yeah, well, now I feel like I have to say Derek Jeter, but now he's retired. I would, from a kid, I used to be obsessed with movies in the late 70s. And Justice for All, Great Santini, Kramer versus Kramer, all this network, and I just watched them over and over and loved it. I always love it, and I love telling stories, and for me that gets me excited. And working with people like him and Alejandro and Copsel.
Have you ever worked with other writers and then you just weren't gelling, but you finished projects through, or what happens when you work with somebody else and you just feel like this isn't going well? Do you end the projects?
This was the first time that I actually collaborated, and with him we clicked right away. Almost immediately. Yeah, we understood each other immediately. It's been. I'm not saying because he's here, because he's a pain in the ass, but it was a dream
and I only collaborated with him and with Armando and Alejandro in the previous movie.
So everything just gelled together the minute you guys met each other?
Yeah, we were lucky.
Yeah, very, very, very lucky.
Yeah. And then what's one thing for aspiring writers, people that are trying to get into the thing, what's one thing you can give them advice about? Is it the thought of when writing a script to overthink it, or what's the thing that you guys?
I always say the same thing about this because I get to read a lot of work from students and things like that, and people want me to read scripts now, and I think the one thing that's really important is it's so easy to get caught up trying to make a living or trying to fit into the system. And when you do that, you become one of everybody else. So what I would recommend more than anything is to hold on to your unique voice, the one that makes you you, even if you think it's unproducible, because it's the only thing that makes you unique. The minute you start to try to say, oh, I'm writing for this franchise or that, or this is what that director likes to do, you're dead. You're dead in the way. You become one of everybody else. So keep the only thing that makes you original is you, and that's the only thing you can do in your writing that makes it pop. That's my advice. Stay original. Stay true to your own voice.
I don't know. I mean, I would say just spend 2 or 3 hours every day writing, whatever it is, and if you cannot enjoy that, just do something else. I mean, it's just about that. It's just about doing it, failing and failing until you can find something that means something to you, I would say.
Awesome. I have like a billion more questions I always ask, but obviously we have to go. But thank you guys so much for
Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
It's amazing to have
Thanks.
you guys on.
Yeah.